Hi, everyone. Welcome to DomainSherpa. Today is an episode of Down the Rabbit Hole with a big group of folks talking about NFTs. We've got me, Shane, Josh, and Alan, along with James Booth and Jack Cal. Since we have some of the most active holders representing some of the best apes, we talk all about the Bored Ape Yacht Club, covering the recent Mutant drop, Steph Curry aping in, and the upcoming auctions at Sotheby's and Christie's. We also talk a lot about Ethereum, OpenSea, and what we see coming in the future for NFTs. All this is about to happen right now on Down the Rabbit Hole here on DomainSherpa. So let's go.
It don't matter what you say, there ain't no way that you messing with my team today. It don't matter what you do, I will not lose.
What's up, Sherpa Network? Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Jonathan Tenenbaum, aka JT, aka Jay On, and I am the host and producer of DomainSherpa, where all roads lead to domains. Today's show is Down the Rabbit Hole. This is a show where, like we say on DomainSherpa, all roads lead to domains. Well, in the reverse, our work with domains leads us into all sorts of different things, especially under the big umbrella of digital assets, which includes crypto, NFTs, and other related stuff. So hence the jump down the rabbit hole. And this show, as it's evolved, we've really been pretty crypto and NFT focused lately because it's the space is on fire and we've all been having a lot of fun with the space. So this show, just so all y'all know, all y'all domain maxis, this is going to be an NFT show today. We're going to talk a lot about the Bored Ape Yacht Club. We're going to talk about some other things, but just so you know, there's going to be a lot of alpha in the show today. But if that is not your thing, we will have a DomainSherpa review coming up right after this that we'll actually be taping this week as well with Braden Pollock and some other folks. So, you know, we will have content for you. But anyway, with that said, let me go ahead and introduce the panel, my co-host, my guests. I'll start. I'm going to go off to my right, and then I'm going to go kind of loop in order. So first of all, we got my man, Shane Cultura, a.k.a. Sugar Shane, a.k.a. Honey Shane, a.k.a. Mike Rowe. Oh, and I would say a.k.a. Colonel Whitenfur, but you're really not Colonel Whitenfur. Colonel Whitenfur is like, you represent Colonel Whitenfur. So it's really more like Shane is the blue ape with the lumberjack shirt and the black BAYC hat. He's the one who actually got me to ape in the first place. And that's what's up. I'm not going to do super extended real bios. I'm going to keep it ape focused on the intros today. So anyway, below Shane, we've got my man, Josh Reason, aka Bjorn Borg, aka Harry Kane, aka 3D tie-dye red ape. Just jumped into his portfolio, just jumped into his wallet. What's up, Josh? How we doing?
What's up?
All right. And then for the first time on the show, super excited about this, we got my boy James Booth, aka Jude Law, aka Jim Parsons, aka Sheldon Cooper, right? First time we did a double aka. Your hair, you don't really have, you used to have the kind of the comb over, not the comb over, but you used to have the part going this way with that haircut. So it was the first opportunity I had to do a double aka, an aka of somebody who's also an aka. We're getting super meta on this one today, guys. We are in the metaverse. And AKA the trippy captain's hat, cheetah ape with the cigar and the sailor shirt. Just so you know, Billy, who does the post-production, who's my brother, is going to be throwing up the apes as we go. So for those of you who are just listening at home, you're not going to get the benefit of all the visuals. But as we're doing the introductions, we're going to throw up at least like everybody's kind of signature forever ape, if you will. Although, are they really forever apes at the end of the day? There's probably a price everybody would accept for their apes. But at the,
I have no forever apes. I got to be clear about that. I'm not going to pretend I do. My ape will be
forever ape
gone.
is 24 hours.
My ape will be gone very soon.
Well, that's why we call Josh Super Ball, aka Super Ball, man. He can't sit still, man. You know what I'm saying? If he's not wheeling and dealing, like he's not breathing. So that's what it is. All right, let's keep it moving. Down below, we've got my man. Oh, and James, man, thank you for being on the show, dude. First time on here. Really excited to have you, man.
Happy to be
All right.
here.
And keeping it moving down at the bottom, we got my man, Alan Dunn, a.k.a. Bill Gates, a.k.a. Gandalf, a.k.a. King Ape in the tweed suit. You got the space ape too? You still have the space ape?
I do.
Right.
I love that.
All right.
That's my forever ape.
Is the space? We'll throw them both up, Billy. Boom. Hit them with them both. Let's let everybody know what's up. And then last but certainly not least, also a first-time guest on the show, which I'm really excited about, Jack Call, a.k.a. Antonio Banderas, a.k.a. Jared Leto, a.k.a. Justin Bieber for the Canadian thing. You know what I'm saying? So, boom, you got some good ones in the AKAs. And then AKA the laser-eyed red ape, which is no joke. You guys have literally some of the best apes. I mean, and that's so well, we'll get into all that. But yeah, laser-eyed red ape. Let's show that guy some love. That is a killer ape, no doubt. We have a couple of folks who aren't on the show who are part of the rabbit hole gang, if you will. Obviously, my boy Andrew Rosner, aka Morpheus, aka John Galt, aka the Dirk Diggler of domain names. Hates when I say that, so I always give it the delay and then I hit him with it. And then he's got a ton of apes. His number one is probably the cream ape, which is the 3-color monochrome, all cream fur, cream shirt, cream background. Cash rules everything around me. Crypto rules everything around me. You know, let's get it. We also don't have Yoni today, aka Young Money, aka Blue Steel. Yoni has an ape, but he's been heavy in the DJing apes on the Solana network. I don't know about heavy, but that's definitely been more his thing because he loves himself some soul. So we'll talk about that. And then, also, Hiron, it's our boy too in the mix. And we're going to get him on the next rabbit hole show. He's got some sick apes, including that 4-trait deathbot ape, which is crazy. Speaking of deathbots, we just picked up that deathbot with the robot eyes and the halo. That one I'm actually splitting with Drew. Up to so good. Death bots are the best bots. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, and Billy, who does the post-production, also has an ape. He's got his man Chill Walton, the ape with the tie-dye. Boom. I think that's a lot of intros. We got a big full house today. So let's dive right into it and let you guys talk a little bit. So right now, the big thing that went down this past weekend was the big mutant release in the Bored Ape Yacht Club. So let's go right to it and let's talk about what we like, what we don't like. I mean, there's been NFT time passes in like dog years, right? So, I mean, it's been 3 days. It feels like it's been 3 months. There's been so much going on. But I think, for me personally, when they first dropped, it was like kind of shocking. The art isn't exactly my thing. I'm not like a gross out kind of, toxic Avenger type of dude. But the more I've gotten into these, the more you realize how much detail and creativity has gone into these. And like, and I think from an artistic standpoint, it's pretty wild. And, and then when you get into the economics of it, the tokenomics, the game theory. So what do you guys think? Somebody tell me something.
Well, I got into apes because I thought that'd be fun to hang.
Don't
on
all
the
talk
wall.
at once though. It's all good.
Yeah. The first thing that when I saw it, I was like, man, I don't want to hang that shit on my wall. Like, it was all melty, candle faced. Yeah. The first ones I saw, the first release were all the common ones. And then 20,000. So that means 20,000 more pieces that we're going to have to trade and money's going to have to come in to prop up and hold. So it's just that whole concept to me wasn't great. But like everything else, you can find your mix in all those apes. You can find the ones that you really like. And I think we all have. And they're all different. It's funny. Josh and I argue all the time. He's like, M1's rule. And I'm like, M2s suck. Our M1s suck. M2s are the best. And he's like, M2s, what a waste of money. M1s are cleaner. And I'm like, but the best ones are up at the top in the M2. So it's actually begun. I've enjoyed it. There's just a lot to go through. Like, I mean, nobody's, there's just a lot of apes and everybody's particular. And there's a lot of melty faces. So if you've got melty face ape, there's so many to choose from.
Yeah, you have to like really like it or have like certain traits or that, and I think this is an interesting and a good point, right? When we all jumped in initially, well, at least for me, I had to have a certain attachment to my apes, actually shout out to my apes. I didn't even shout out my Lincoln Abraham, who is my original ape, who is one of the more boring apes, but he's got the black hat. And then my other ape, my cheetah ape with the robot eyes and the safari hat, Safari Ferrari, never say sorry. You know what I'm saying? And so those two apes are currently in the lab. They're actually going to be in the studio tonight working on this track ApeSh that we're working on and going ape shit, doing ape shit. BAYC. And, for me, I was always like, I love the art. I love like kind of the ethos and everything behind it. The mutants definitely made it take like, it was kind of like all of a sudden it was this crazy, left turn and really changed the game in a lot of ways. But I agree with you, and the other thing that was nuts was Saturday, I had like in real life, IRL stuff going on. So I wasn't even that dialed in. I was getting like text messages and seeing the Twitter updates and all that stuff. And it was all happening at like 1,000,000 miles an hour. So it wasn't even until the next day or two that I was able to digest some of what was really going on. And I missed the mint, unfortunately, because I would have minted some of the new ones. And, but I think I'm with you. At first I was like, wow, this is like a crazy change, but it does sort of enter into, maybe not in the short term, but I think long term as it plays out, I think there's going to be some really cool kind of things that are going to sort of flow from this. Plus, it's an access thing. It allows a lot more people to now become part of the Bored Ape Yacht Club by having mutants. But so James, man, since we got you on here, and you've got high end, you got some of the best. I mean, so does Jack and the rest of your sort of fam have some of the highest value apes with some of the dopest traits. You guys have been doing the mutants with you've got the robot eyes and all that good stuff, the gold. So what's your take? I mean, initially, where were you at? How you feel now?
Yeah, I mean, like I love the fact that more people can get into the club, like at an easier entry point. But I also have sort of mixed feelings as well. I mean, the artwork itself is not sort of like not up really my alley. The Mega Mutants, I think there's like 9 of them, like 5 or 6 of them look amazing. Yeah. And obviously I think there'll be a great long-term hold or investment on those ones.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, the M2s, like some of them look decent, but then like, yeah, the melty skin and stuff like that. I mean, for me, I pretty much mutated all of my apes and then just kind of fire sold most of them.
Yeah, but and interestingly, you talk about the fire sale, but I mean, 30 ETH, 90 ETH, I mean,
90 ETH fire sale.
It's a 90
$250,000.
I'm out. That's it. I'm taking my $250,000 and I'm going home. But yeah, no, I'm with you, man. And I think I think it probably shares a lot of the sentiment, but I think for you guys, the ability to be able to mutate those with those really cool traits, I think that still is one of those things. It's like a cream rising to the top, So when you look at this whole big sort of mess of now new apes and new mutants, not new apes, but new mutants, the differentiator really is those traits. I mean, that's why you guys were able to get some of those values like as quickly as you did for those apes, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean,
go on, James. I was going to say, what's your strategy going forward with mutants? Are you completely out on them?
I mean, I've got like 4 left, and look, I'm obviously very grateful that they rewarded us, with essentially decent
free money.
But then obviously, like we're heavily invested into the club, so very grateful for that. But going forward, no, I mean, I've got like 4 left to sell. Once they sell, I'm still very bullish on the OG apes, and I'll just reinvest into the OGs.
Yeah. What do you guys think about like burning the like James, you minted your M1 and your M2 from what I probably is a premium ape. Do you think that hurts the value now, because you can't mint, a new owner can't mint the M1 and M2, right?
Honestly, I don't think it really matters that much. If someone's like on Rarity Tools, they see our gold ape, they're not going to think, has the mutants been taken from this? They want it for the OG ape.
That I was listing one of my apes for sale, and 2 separate people actually asked me, has it been mutated or is it a virgin? So I think that already people see that there is added value for it to be a virgin, because then they can derive value for the high value apes. Yeah. Right? Because there is that delta between the price of the M2s and the price that you're able to sell it. So if it's not mutated, they add value that way. But my theory was that I don't want to have to like sell it by saying it's a virgin, so I want more for it. It's just going to be a lot simpler to say, you know what, like this is a price, take it or leave it, rather than try to like sell it on the fact that it's a virgin.
Yep.
I think also right now it's a bit of a unique situation, because they just got released and the mutant prices are pretty high. So, people are buying M2s, M1s even for 100 ETH, especially if they've got rare traits. To be honest, I think we're even seeing it right now. The floor is dropping a little bit on the mutants, especially. It's like, and we saw the same thing with like 01N as well, or 0N1. It's like the initial release on projects that have a lot of big players in them, it just goes like this in the first couple of days. But I think it's a little out of whack with reality. Just personally, I mean, I think the mutants, like James said, the mutants are cool, right? And it brings in more people to the club. but for me, I have a few concerns with them. I think that most of them are not PFP worthy, which is like the most important thing.
Very good.
And because they're not PFP worthy, I just wonder how they're going to withstand, the future. It's like right now people are really excited to get into the club, but are they going to be really excited to have this really ugly looking picture on their, Twitter for a long time? I don't know. That there's a few concerns there for me. But I mean, we got to see how it plays out.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good point. And, I think then that brings in, I know Alan is a big game theory tokenomics guy. And, so this whole idea of holding on to the serum, right? Well, actually right after, it was the day after, I went online and I went and I saw an ape that was, was like literally the floor ape. And I checked on the site where you can check to see if it's already been mutated. And according to the site, it wasn't, and I checked, and then I went into the wallet of the seller and saw they had the ape for a while, went back through, and they had a lot of transactions and activity, not all ape related, but, I'd gone back through 3 hours or something and saw, okay, no mutation. So I expected there wasn't going to be any kind of weird sort of like glitch. So I bought it and then went to use the serum on it because I would check to even see based on rarity tools what the traits would look like and all that if I used the serum, and couldn't use it, and I was like, oh shit, like that took value for me personally, because I looked at it like, that was a 9 at a minimum. The serum that I had gotten, I actually bought, serum for 6, and then I figured I could sell the ape for 9.5, just the mutant ape, or, it'd have that kind of value. And then, that's several ETH off the table, right? So if we're looking at this from an economic standpoint, like that absolutely devalued. Now, I could have held on. I sold the ape pretty much right away for what I paid for it. Took a little bit of a hit in commission just to keep it moving, free up the ETH. I could have held it a few more days today, probably, and sold it for a profit, so poor me, I'm crying tears with my dollar bills or whatever. But so, but as we're getting into these details, and that's another thing, look, first of all, this is not financial advice, right? And also too, we know that these are all like first world problems, right? I mean, everybody that's here on this call is making a lot of money selling apes. We've made a lot of money selling domain names, but at the same time, like there's obviously a lot of people that are interested in trying to do this. Like, it's kind of like I talk about for work. I mean, there's certain amount of like stuff that I do for the love, but if I wasn't necessarily getting paid, I wouldn't show up. Right. So it's like, not that this is the only reason we're in this, but when we're, when people are making these moves, and obviously the Yuga Labs and OpenSea, they benefit from transactions taking place, and everything's not just, if it was one person buying a Forever Ape and never selling it, then there'd be no transactions and that would be it. Right. So, that is it. So when we talk about that, I just don't want people to get the wrong idea. Like, oh man, these guys are only in it for the money. I mean, it's not, I love my apes. I never want to sell my other 2 apes, but if the price is right, I'll do it. If I can pay off my mortgage, like, I mean, there are real life things that, and when I see people that are having these, and that's the beautiful thing about this, and credit to Yuga Labs. I mean, they've done this better than anybody, even better than Larva Labs, as far as I'm concerned, as far as bringing additional value to the holders, to reward the community members and the folks that had faith and are involved and all that kind of stuff. Like, and when I'm seeing it on Twitter, I'm seeing people talking about like, oh, I just was able to buy a car. I just paid off my student loan. Like, that's beautiful shit. And that's happening because there's an economic system based around this whole thing. Right. I mean, that's so I think that's the balance. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of level set there and say that, but but it also shows you that, not everything works exactly as it should. Or, and I think to Jack's point, there is value, at least at this point in time, about whether or not the apes have been mutated and all that. I mean, keep in mind, it may feel like a year, but it's literally been 3 days since they even just announced all this stuff in the first place. So to what I was saying about Alan, you've got the, you were talking about the serum and all that, because now you got a couple different options, right? You can hang on to the serum.
3 days and 55,000 in Ethereum volume.
and you know what, you gotta give the Yuga Labs too. This started as a Dutch auction, right? I mean, that's that tells you how crazy the demand was. I mean, they didn't put this out at like 0.1 ETH.
Yeah.
It started, what did it start at? 3 ETH?
3, yeah.
3 ETH, and sold out at 2.75.
Yeah.
No
And that
way.
was only because the first like 20 minutes nobody knew what was happening. Otherwise, it would have all sold out at 3.
I did.
Apart from Alan.
Yeah. That's the
Alan
thing.
knew exactly. Alan knew exactly what was happening. In
Alan
fact, I
was
think he
going
was.
in no
I think
matter
he was
what.
on the phone. I think he was on the phone with Gordon. Like, I know what's happening.
He's like, don't worry, man. I dig this. I'm in. I'm in.
No,
While everyone else is like,
Alan's the guy that you go to the beach and he just runs and jumps in the water. He doesn't
That's
know what
it,
the
yeah.
temperature is. He doesn't know if it's salt water. He doesn't know if there's sharks, but he's just going to run and jump in the water. And we're all standing there with our towels thinking, well, he didn't get eaten. Let's go.
yeah, exactly.
But I will tell you if there's jellyfish there. I will.
Yeah, no doubt. And so I mean, and that's the thing. So you can hang on to M1, you can hang on to so for those who don't know, I mean, let me give the real quick. So basically what happened was, if you had an ape, you were awarded a serum of one of 3 tiers, right? Either the M1s, which there were 7,000, M2s, which there were 2,992, right? I think something like that. And then there were 8 mega serums. The mega serums now, turn your apes into mega apes, which are selling for $1 million plus. And then, so, and you can use either the M1 and M2, M3, you can use either serum, any serum on an ape, but only once per serum, but you could effectively mutate one ape 3 times. So, you get into this situation where not every ape's going to be M2'd. Not every ape can even be M1 at the end of the day. Right. So, when you talk about some of the, go ahead, Jack, you're going to say something. Oh, sorry. You open your mouth to talk, man. I'm going to call on you, man. I'm like, participate. But anyway, so then you start getting into this thing where it's like, all right, well, as the dust settles here, especially I think the M2 serum becomes very valuable for those who hold on to it, because the more people that use it, the less that there is, till you're only going to have so much. So if you do have somebody as they get in that wants to develop the full set, or, whatever, like, or has a particular ape that they want to M2 with, then that becomes a, very valuable NFT. So,
and here's the game. So this is how I looked at it. You got to see who's minting what. So the rarity is not going to be in the ape. It's going to be what ape do they use the M2 with. Yeah. So if everybody uses it on something and nobody uses it on a basic ape, that could be the rarest M2. Oh. So it was wise to sit back. I waited to see, I have 3 apes that I could use it on, and I'm thinking, who is going to use their M2 on what? Well, of course, they're going to go to the gold. They're going to go to the trippies. But then there's that middle ground, and you think, are they going to use it on the smoking ones? I saw the smoker, like I have a cigarette guy, and I saw the M2 on that one. It's got cigarettes stuffed all in his mouth like an ashtray. And I thought, well, it's so bad that nobody's going to do it, so it could be worth more, but it's so bad I can't use it anywhere. So that was the gameplay, is to try. I had an M2. Is it worth more selling it to someone down the road to use it? Or was it better to watch and see where the rarest one? And it turns out I used it on the smoking pipe, unshaven face, and only, I think, 61 were done of everybody. And could there be more? Yeah, because there's M2, but there is a definitely gameplay in it, watching who's doing what, when to do it. And I like the art because I think it's the trippiest. Like, it looks like a dope head, like a pothead smoking. If you ever seen, he's got literally like an opium pipe, and they all got beards. Oh, it looks like a Grateful Dead poster all the way. It's, to me, it's one of the most fun.
The ones that are cool are really cool. I mean, I think that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like polarized with them. Like the ones that I don't like, but there are a lot of them, because I mean, you got thousands, right, that are like so cool. And we got Halloween coming up, right? I mean, it's almost like I want to have a mutant, so I can use that as my October PFP. You know what I mean? It's literally almost worth it just for that. And so yeah, but I think without a doubt, some of those are just there. And I find that when I'm going through the lists and just looking at them long enough, like, I gotta take a break. I'm like, man, like, then I look at the regular apes, the OG apes. I'm like, man, they're just so boring. You know what I mean? They're so bored.
A couple of mine came out really nice, actually, like the trippy sailor, the trippy hat with the cigar, like the melted cigar, and I listed that 35F, and it sold within like 2 hours or something.
Oh yeah, well, that's the thing.
Was that an M2?
Yeah, M2, yeah.
And I would agree.
No, I mean, the next 30 days, I mean,
also, just to jump in here, Shane.
Oh, go ahead.
Go, Jack.
Sorry. sorry to cut you. I was just going to say Shayna had the right strategy, because I'm noticing now that a lot of M2s are selling for significantly less, like 10 ETH less than what the serums are selling for. So a lot of people are just very impatient and they use their M2s on low value apes. And what happened was they ended up losing a lot of ETH as a result. So this right strategy definitely seems to be using the M2s, well, both really M1 and M2 on the valuable apes, because you end up making a profit because you can just then like buy another M1 or M2, right? But these people are selling for like 12 ETH, 11 ETH, and they're probably like kicking themselves saying, I wish I waited because I could have sold the serum itself.
They used it on an ape that didn't, the M2s weren't good. I mean, Josh is right in a lot of cases. A lot of cases, the M1s are better than the M2s. So you need to save it for an ape that created a mutant that people want. And that's, you don't have to figure out what that is. That takes time to see what people are looking for and what, you know, and like the smiley, the grin M1 is one of the better looking ape because it's clean. There's a lot more of them, but it's doing a lot better because people want it. This all comes to demand. Rarity makes them wants them to have it because it's rare. But at the same time, it's got to be, you could have something they have twice as many apes, but 50 more people want it than the other one, then it's going to be valuable there. I mean, so there's a whole bunch of different things going on.
I'm looking at the M2 I mentioned this morning, and I like the M1 much better. So.
Yeah, but that's easy to say for in overall, but there are individual ones where the M2 is better, and there's some that are better than M1. It really, and that's also personal opinion. Like I hate all the melty faces. Every M2 that has a melted face, you really gotta. I mean, the only reason I like the guy that I got is because he's got a beard, and you don't really notice the face as much. But just a straight candle wax thing, that's I'm getting rid of all of them.
Yeah. What was the idea behind? Anybody know this? The idea behind candle wax?
So to your point about what was the, you know, sort of the thought process behind like just the whole thing, I think it's this idea that they've encountered this, you know, radioactive type serum, which, you know, led to like, you know, this, you know, again, mutating, melting sort of, you know, effect. And if you look at the ones that go from an OG to an M1 to an M2, you kind of see that it's almost like it's a progression, right? It's like, you know, at first it's the initial effect, which is like this melting, and then any traits have a certain thing, and then sort of a further, you know, sort of exacerbating of that condition further along in the M2, you know? So, and to me, it was very much like, again, Toxic Avenger kind of situation. You know, they got into the radioactive waste, and it just led to, you know, again, a combination of mutating and melting, and you know. And I mean, that was my take.
That's why a lot of people say that the M1s look better, because they look closer to what an OG ape looks like.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I mean, I think you make a great point about the PFPs. Like out of all, you know, there's probably 10% of the mutants I think are PFP worthy, you know, and obviously ones that have like the really good traits. And I think that's another credit to, you know, so with the dogs, it was very, you know, call it diplomatic or whatever, right? Where they went out, I ended up with the 6th most rare dog, even though my ape was, you know, the one that was awarded that dog was like a mid-tier ape, right? And I thought that was really cool for the dogs, but I think this time around to provide a little bit more reward to the folks that had the, you know, the high value apes, because they either got them early or like James and Jack and team like spent a lot of ETH to go get the high value apes. You know, so I thought it was cool that that there was value for them in that, you know, because I thought that was a good look, you know.
I think that was a good look as well. I agree with you. It kind of rewards the people that took larger risks, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, or, you know, held longer when they could have sold quicker and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, you know, so it's sort of like they had something for the folks that are, you know, kind of the entry level to get in. And then they also rewarded the OGs, you know, like the very, very valuable ones. So, you know, I thought that was cool.
What do you guys think about the rise in Ethereum now that's happening? Just I know that you know, we typically have said that blue chips don't really get affected by the rise in Ethereum, especially like punks, but I don't think we've seen a true rise in Ethereum yet. Let's not forget that Ethereum was at like 4,000, you know, when this all kind of started blowing up in May. So we're still lower than all-time highs there. You know, when Ethereum does when it does rip and it goes to like 5K, that's going to be interesting.
Well,
I don't know.
It's a 20K or 100K, right?
Well,
Like
yeah.
people think it's gonna skyrocket. At that point, if you bought an ape, for example, for 20 ETH, right, and you got it at like 3,000, and all of a sudden it's worth 20, all of a sudden the whole game changed, right? Like people are gonna view it very differently. Right now, it's like the whole casino model, right, where you put in $1,000 and you get like chips, right? So you don't really feel like you're paying $1,000 or $100, right?
Well, it's like a casino model, but if there's no stable coin, that's the great thing, right?
That is true. That is true. I was reading a thread. I was reading a thread the other day that, and I was telling JT about this, that there's only 35,000 wallets with enough Ethereum, like pure Ethereum, in those wallets to afford a punk. Only 35,000.
Enough with the FUD. Enough with the FUD, man.
That's not FUD. That's not FUD. That's not FUD. That's just goes to show. I'm not saying that that's like a terrible thing.
No,
I'm just saying that that's a very interesting number because it's not that many when there are 10,000 punks and there are only 35,000 wallets with over 150 ETH. Doesn't mean that they don't have like a bunch of Bitcoin. A lot of those wallets will have like a bunch of Bitcoin. Those are strictly like Ethereum token holders. But that's not a lot of ETH. I'm not fudding. I'm just saying like that's an interesting number.
Well, I think more importantly would be to look at what's the overall outstanding amount of ETH period, right? Compared to the cost of the NFTs, because I think then you're really looking at the real spread. But again, I think, I convert Bitcoin to Ether and Solana to Ether and back and forth all the time when I'm trying to move money into my wallet. I don't keep it all in my MetaMask. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's also a bit of a moving target. But yeah, but I think those are interesting macro sort of, data points to look at to see, how is that going to impact this market, over time? To me, though, I think the bigger thing is less about the available Ethereum. And I was joking, obviously, but you told me that data point when you were giving me a bit of a like, you were running through your, hey, here's why, here's my bear case on everything, on life.
Yeah, I have a bet. I'm one of those guys that's never gonna get like ridiculous returns because I always like have a hedge. I always have a hedge, and I'm never like all in. I'm never at a point where it's just like if this goes to shit, I'm not gonna have anything.
Yeah,
so it's one of those things.
And you'll be fine in the long term, and and you're doing great. I've seen your crib. So anyway, with that, but yeah, I think the other things though, for me, when I look at what's happening from a sort of again from a macro or like call it a societal level that's impacting. I mean. You got more and more recognizable people that are buying into NFTs and the Bored Ape Yacht Club every single day. And I think that's the thing. I mean, USD to Ether can happen pretty quickly, right? And, when you get Steph Curry, I mean, that was another thing that made this whole run up during the Mutants insane was that before it even happened, Steph Curry, not only does he go and get a Bored Ape, but he makes it his PFP and then he includes BAYC in his bio. I mean, his bio literally said like father of and named his kids and then was like son, husband, brother, and then it was like comma Davidson Wildcat, which is where he went to college and he's got a lot of love for Davidson. And then it was like BAYC and then it was like Corinthians, you know what I'm saying? So it's like literally he put that up there with the most important shit in his life on his bio that and as a representation of who he is and what he's into. I mean, and he is one of those athletes that, I mean, you don't get, especially like for the NBA, because I mean, we already had a couple NBA players, Josh Hart, LaMelo Ball.
Because NBA players are so known for making great investments.
Well, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I could give a shit whether an athlete buys anything that I do. If Warren Buffett puts in his profile, then the game changes.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. All right, because most recently, when you talk about what basketball players buy, Kevin Durant was part of the group that OpenSea recently valued at 1.6 billion, took on $110 million in funding led by Andreessen Horowitz and Kevin Durant. So it's like,
that's the baller move right there. You sell the picks and shovels. You don't buy the gold.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that, but it also shows, again, bigger picture. I think I like to, maybe it's just me, I get caught up in the irrational exuberance of it all. I think the whole movement's amazing. We're having a blast and we're all making a bunch of money and everything's working. Almost, the best strategy up to this point has really been buy fast and sell slow, right? For the most part, because everything's gone up and had its runs at some point. Right now, you don't want to be left holding the bag. So there's definitely certain projects. We saw it with Oni Force. There was that enormous run up. I actually took a loss on one of the last ones I sold. Although I still believe in it, I just think it took off too fast. So I'm waiting to see a little bit more of the roadmap before I really get back in, and, but I did fine because I minted, some really, some good ones. Right.
But here's how I know that it's going well, not because of Steph Curry. I know it because my daughter's guys that live in her house with her introduced me and said to the other guy, this guy owns an ape. A 21-year-old guy thinks that is the ultimate thing. He didn't introduce me as Libby's dad, that I owned a nursery, anything, like no car that I drive. He said, this guy owns an ape. So as long as that's a flex, then we're okay.
Exactly.
It's so awesome because if you
get into it, right? Because ultimately it shows prestige. And it's not about the fact that it's a good investment or not that they're getting in. But when Steph Curry, I don't even watch basketball and I know what Steph Curry is, right? Yeah. Ultimately, when he's putting it as his PFP, it's like a status symbol. And that just brings more eyeballs and more investment into the apes, which helps prop up the entire market.
That's a great point.
Let's not forget as well that the DraftKings guys dropped like $3 million in 10 minutes on all those trippies the other day.
And those are all great buys, right? I mean, it's like you're like, good job, guys. I mean, yeah, the DraftKings guys are in. Well, that's what I thought was pretty wild watching this from, now I bought my first ape back in literally it was like June 1st, and I remember when, I'm like, am I really going to drop 2 ETH on this JPEG? My kids are like, what are you doing? I didn't even tell my wife. I'm like, I'll let her know later. It's just a crypto thing, honey. It's crypto. You wouldn't understand. And, and so watching that like evolve over time, what I thought was interesting is, some certain folks, like there's a lot of like, crypto OGs that didn't necessarily dive in right away. Right. So that start coming into the party a little later that have a lot of crypto and, have a lot of pull and, so, I think it's invisibility. So, I thought that was also really interesting. I kind of just assumed, okay, anybody that's sort of already in crypto is already in NFTs, but then I also now I see a lot of like the back and forth between like the NFT folks and the Bitcoin maxis and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, like the memes where it's like the Bitcoin folks, when they realize all you can do with Bitcoin is talk about Bitcoin, and then
I have a question too. So in my mind, rolling back a little bit on ETH, I've turned everything into ETH. Like I literally now look at something and think how much ETH it is. It took me a while to get to that.
Yeah.
And I think as it goes up, that's going to be fine. So if it gets to 5,000, I think I'll still think in ETH. But when it starts to get to 8,000 and 9,000, I might start going back and calculating things in dollars.
Sure.
And so what is that number? That's what I'm trying to figure out and that's whatever that number is going to be when people start lowering the price in ETH
100%.
Because of the dollar. I don't know what that number is. I know it's over 5,000 for me personally. Like right now between 2 and 3,500, I still think in ETH. When I bought my ape, it was at like 2,200 and I still think of it as 0.58 ETH. I don't think of it as money.
There's a lot of diamond hand kids that are in this NFT game. When I say diamond hand kids, I mean like younger than me, that this is a lot of money for them. And as ETH continues to rise, it becomes even more money for them. And I'm talking like college kids.
Yeah.
No, my daughter, I have a 21-year-old daughter. We talk about this every day. I said, sell your lazy lion. You can get I sent her one at 0.2, right? Now it's at 1.5. That's the same amount of money she made working her ass off all summer. She can get like $4,500. You know what she told me? Nah, I think it's going higher.
Lazy lion.
She's bullish on the Lions. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
I'm thinking that's $4,500 to a 21-year-old girl that's begging me for gas money. But she's saying, "I'm not selling it, Dad. I want a little bit more." I said, "Man, this is why I'm still in, baby. I have a person to bump off that." Well, I don't think you kind of do, Alan, but he's not really into crypto. But having a kid that's an adult that's right at that point that this really appeals to is a good bounce off.
Yeah, well, bouncing off kids and the kids in general, for those of us who have kids, is funny. I said to my 11-year-old the night that I listed my dog, Fallout Boy, I sold him for 35. And, at one point I got an offer that night for like 20, I think. And I was like, I don't know. I think I might sell him. My 11-year-old's like, but you don't have him listed for that. Why would you sell him for that? I'm like,
Smart.
you're absolutely right.
Oh,
Dude.
good.
You know what I'm saying?
He's like, Dad, are you the guy that accepts WEF? Are you the guy that accepts WEF?
Exactly. He's like, don't pay the gas. Don't pay the gas. Paper hands. Paper hands.
Exactly. Put your hands out, Dad. Oh, yeah. Oh, your hands are soft, Dad. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. So
bad sometimes when I take wet offers, I'm like,
no.
That's embarrassing. I can't see my daughter at Christmas and tell her I took WEF.
It is funny the dynamics of ETH in general. I mean, look, it's hard for me, I think, with that, because if you talk to Drew, he would say the same thing. Look, if ETH rips, it's gonna kind of crater the market, right? But I guess the market, if it's calculated in ETH, I mean, I think that's a weird thing for me, because I'm still like USD, like in how I live, right? So, I pay my mortgage in, US dollars. So,
but nobody's buying in to buy. I just don't see a person. I mean, maybe on the smaller stuff, but I don't see somebody going, I'm going to go to my bank and go buy some ETH and go buy an ape. And so
I did that like 2 weeks ago. A lot of money came out of my bank account, and I was like, this isn't cool. Shit. Like, what the hell?
But that's where the problem was, because you're actually seeing the dollars go into the ETH. Whereas if it rips forward, I think it's just in their, it's just in their account. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and we talk about that whole thing about just, the context, right? Like, I mean, I'll go into a store and I'll be like, I'm not paying $12 for a pair of socks. And then I'm like, oh, what? 0.3 ETH for some random shit that I think has zero value? Yeah, it's just 0.3. I don't care.
Dude, I spent 30 minutes on the phone with somebody yesterday about like a $900 escrow fee. I wanted to just go through it. It's like, I spent like $100,000 on a JPEG. Escrow fee.
And I bought a fake art block because I was in a hurry on a launch in the OpenSea, and I lost $1,000. If someone stole $1,000, I'd be calling the police and spending all day filling out a police report. And, I would be sick to my stomach all day long if somebody took $1,000 cash from me. I mean, I worked hard for $1,000. And that one, I was like, I'll get it back on a freaking red Degen ape or something,
Yeah, I minted I didn't mint them. I bought like 5 apes that were like derivative, and it was on like the fake Bored Ape Yacht Club Instagram account. And I paid like 1 Ethereum for them, and then the next day I go into my account, they're all gone.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. Similar thing happened to me with the trolls. So the fucking trolls. So Alan hits me up. He's like, yo, check these out, So, and at the time, it's always Alan, right? It's like,
sound like a good idea.
And I'm like, yo, but Alan hits me up and I'm like, I'm in. I don't even need to know what it is. Like, are there any traits that are like important? Like, and then, so I go over there. But the thing was, I went from my cell phone to my computer, and in the process, I went on OpenSea and didn't realize, because this was the first time it had happened to me, but I went to the wrong listing. You know what I mean? And I went to a scam listing that I bought 2 really quick. And I'm like, yo, I got these super rare ones. You know what I mean? And it's like, so then I reported it to OpenSea, because I was like, fuck these guys. And it was a couple $100. I was pretty heated. And, so OpenSea pulls the listing and then takes, and took the NFTs too. I'm like, wait, please leave me the NFT so I can maybe go scam somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Why do I got to be left holding the bag? It's still an NFT. Doesn't have to be official. Maybe that'll have value, and that maybe the scam ones will have more value than the originals down the road. I mean, the shit's called the fucking trolls. I deserve to get rugged. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I would love to see the numbers on this, honestly, because like if you search for a Fidenza, if you search for Bored Ape, if you start any search, it's almost all fraud.
Yeah, it's all garbage.
It's ridiculous.
Well, I hope that's something that they fix going forward. Or James, you were saying?
Yeah, even these new serums, like if you type in serum on OpenSea, it gives you all the fake ones first. And I have to like go through and see and look for the verified badge and stuff. If you're doing it quickly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And they didn't, And they didn't kill like, so it's not like I got the ETH that they took in their commissions back. I don't think, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, Shane.
It canceled. It canceled what I bought like in 8 seconds. Like when I went to go see what I bought, it said, this has been delisted. I look at my ETH, it didn't get delisted. It got sent fast.
That's what I'm saying, you know? So, and you'd almost wonder if at some point, you know, they have some, you know, like a tail period, a little bit of delay before they, you know, but part of the benefit of these platforms and like, you know, having, you know, seen it on, you know, where domains everything takes so much longer, you know, you've got this instant settlement, instant payment, instant delivery of the NFTs. I mean, that's a big positive to the way this whole ecosystem works. But if there was a delay in paying the sellers, like, I don't know how quickly the sellers get paid. I'm assuming the ETH shows up almost instantaneously. Has anybody on here know how that works? Has anybody done any of that?
Oh, when you sell something?
Yeah. Has anyone actually sold like, you know, their own NFT?
Oh yeah. No,
like
no.
collection. It works the same way.
So you basically get paid immediately.
So if you have a collection and you want to get paid on like royalties, OpenSea pay you out like once a month or something on the royalties.
So technically OpenSea, so the seller would get, well, that's interesting. So,
Well, no, are you sure of that? Because when you buy something, there's literally a breakdown, like 2.5% to OpenSea, 5% to artist or whatever. So in the contract, wouldn't that, because I've looked at a few of the transactions and I haven't checked the addresses, but I mean, it seems like that the 2.5 is going to OpenSea, and the 5% or whatever is going straight to whatever wallet the artist.
right.
So the royalties are definitely paid out monthly, for sure.
Okay.
So if you go to, you can verify that as well. If you go to my collections in OpenSea, you'll obviously not have any. You click on create a collection, and when you're setting up your collection, you can choose what your royalties are going to be. So it says here, collect a fee when a user resells an item you originally created. This is deducted from the final sell price and paid monthly to a payout address of your choosing.
So technically,
you know, that's
OpenSea,
actually that's good fraud stuff.
well, yeah. So so why didn't we get paid? So I should have got at least my 5% back, if not the full thing, if they were the original seller as well, right? Because then they could be the creator of this fraudulent listing and then the seller of these fraudulent items, which means technically OpenSea, if they're holding back, well, I guess the seller would get it right away, depending on how they created the account. But the creator or the artist, if you will, they could have at least kicked me back my 5%. You know what I mean? So instead they just keep it. But you know, right now it's the Wild West.
It probably would have cost more in gas.
Oh yeah, well, exactly. That would have charged me the gas. I would have ended up down even more.
Media Options is the industry's leading domain broker specializing in domain acquisitions, high-value domain sales, and domain name consultation. As pioneers and thought leaders on the subject of the domain aftermarket and domain name value, plus through their clear domain acquisition service, Media Options offers startups and established corporations an unparalleled scope of high-value domain options, providing access to domain names and curation technologies not available elsewhere. Media Options believes in the power of a great domain name and is dedicated to helping you obtain yours. Call or email today to put a domain to work for you.
But anyway, all right, well, let's keep it moving. So, you know, other things too, we're talking about some of the macro stuff that I thought was kind of interesting. You know, Arizona Ice-T bought an ape, right? Visa bought a CryptoPunk. Those were big news last week. Also kind of in this big run up, you know, and this goes back to what we're talking about as far as, you know, and I think I'm really, has anybody heard anything about how Arizona Ice-T plans on using their ape? Because this is super interesting to me. I mean, you get big brands in here and they're like, hey, you know, because they've got a marketing budget for a marketing campaign of a couple $100,000, you know, or $1 million, you know, throwing an ape into the mix is not, you know, could be part of that.
It's interesting for sure. I was seeing something the other day that said that the only way that you can use the BAYC logo if it's on your ape. So like for branding purposes, like Arizona Ice-T are using, or if someone else comes along like Visa, the only way that they could get that BAYC logo into their branding is if it's on the ape. So I thought that was an interesting thing. Probably adds a little value to merch apes. So
yeah, but I mean, even so, just even regardless of using the BAYC or the Bored Ape Yacht Club logo, like just, using the ape as like, you know, a character, you know, on like what
Yeah.
Shane's doing with the Colonel White and Fur, you know, if they
Well,
throw-
yeah, it's just not a character too. Booth, you said DraftKings bought a lot of them. So, you know, just imagine you're spending $150,000 or whatever on a, you know, some kind of giveaway, a 7-day cruise or something. But then all of a sudden you throw in an ape. If you do, how many people are going to gamble in this competition DraftKings like does? I mean, they're going to make their money back like 1,000 times, you know. So, yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, there's
that's
so
a really,
much.
really
like
cool
like
idea.
having one of those trippy apes as a prize on
Yes.
DraftKings.
Yeah,
How
you know,
sick would that be?
whoever spends the most that
Oh.
month or wins. I mean, like, it's
That
there's
would
so
be
much.
wild.
Yeah, these are part of culture now. I mean, this is, you know, people, you know, you think about Supreme, right? I mean, I don't really know anything about this stuff. Like I said, I got like 12 shirts of the same color. But, you know, if you go to StockX,
That's why, you know, oh, go ahead.
no, but if you go to StockX and you look at Supreme, I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, they got lipstick selling for $50 or something. Like everything Supreme is out the window. It's crazy pricing.
Yeah, BAYC
So,
could be the next, like, you know, that's what some people are saying, like, you know, because they're throwing it up on the merch and the skateboards. And that was part of what I dug about it, too. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Bathing Ape. You know, Bape was like big, like, you know, brand and super, like, you know, sort of exclusive, cool, kind of expensive, you know, stuff. And, you know, and I've seen people use that, the Supreme, you know, sort of, you know, metaphor or whatever, saying, you know, we could be the next Supreme, where it's like between the merch and everywhere you see Bored Apes, that it, because it represents like not just the apes themselves, but the community and all that. And you've got now a tie-in, which I think is kind of like the double-edged sword of the mutants, right? The mutants could potentially dilute, but you're also adding potentially another, you're doubling the size of the sort of customer base, right? And that's the size of the reach. So, you know, when we put out like the music and the honey and the comics and everything else, it's like now you've got a bunch of other folks that are like fully invested in the success and everything that everybody's doing in the space. Like we're all a big old team, you know what I mean? So
I think one of the most beautiful things with apes has always been for me is that like Supreme has its own brand. I don't really recognize, I don't really connect with that. You know, Louis Vuitton has the brand or whatever, you know, there's all these different brands, but most of these brands kind of somewhat, you know, separate kind of people in life. You know, there's, you know, if you can't afford a Louis Vuitton or Supreme or whatever, but the apes are for everybody. There's nothing. It's entirely neutral. Like
Everybody
you know,
that has $140,000.
well, yeah, well now, yeah, okay, now, but in the beginning, no. And that's what brought everybody together. It was just, you know, it was just fun. You can tell the stories, and it's not just that, like, yeah, I know there's a 6-figure entry fee, right? But I mean, how many artists are creating derivatives of these things, and which has no cost to it, and now they're putting $10,000-$20,000 in their pocket every month. I mean, I don't know. I know a guy that's, you know, using an ape to sell honey.
No, I mean, my ape is going to need an agent, and I'm not shitting you. I'm talking to. We have a great beer company that makes. I mean, they just got into. They've been a popular bar, and they sell gallons and hundreds of thousands of gallons. But they just started during COVID bottling it and canning it, and it's way more than their stores. So, and it's starting to spread across the country. And I said, hey, I'd love to do a Colonel Whitenfur and do a heifer whiten and use the monkey, use the ape as the logo. They're game. They think it'll sell well. So literally there's going to be 100,000 cans of beer with Colonel Whitenfur. And so it's a marketing thing. It's you're taking a character just like you would anything else. The difference is I have 999,000 other people that know the brand already, and it's spreading from here, and I've got an instant credibility. So
if I see that on the shelf at the store, I'm copying it no matter what. I'm like, hell yeah, like that's my shit. Like that's my, you know, not just because it's you, but because it's
that's a rocket magic here too, like which we really haven't seen yet. Like, you know, in the last, I don't know how old everybody is, but you know, in the last 40 plus years or whatever, you don't see anything on the shelves, and you don't see people, you know, creating stuff with the Disney's Mickey Mouse, with Goofy and all this stuff, without going through extensive IP licensing rights and all this stuff. You know, you do these derivatives or whatever. You know, hopefully you got good lawyers to, you know, kind of say why you use Mickey Mouse or whatever. But this is it. I mean, the apes have given this to us. They've given anyone that's got some creativity an opportunity to capitalize on that market, and they don't need to spend $100,000 on an ape. They can just be part of the community by using their talent.
100%. And I mean, even whenever I think about buying an ape, I immediately think of all the cool things I could do with it. You know, I bought the one that I had with James. We had similar apes that had the zombie eyes and the horns, the devil horns. And in my head, I was like, man, if we keep these apes, like we could do a whole comic series around I was calling them the Knights of the Living Dead, but not N-I-G-H-T, but K-I-N-I-G-H-T, you know, like zombie anti-heroes, but, you know, within the Bored Ape community where all the other apes are like civilian apes, but these guys are special because, you know, they got this zombie situation, but they don't go full zombie because you never go full zombie because they got the horns, because they got the devil
you
thing.
really have been thinking about this.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But this is what I mean. Like you know, it literally allows you to like, and if I'm not an animator or an illustrator, but it's like, if I had enough, like, you know, if I felt like, okay, this is really the move and the best use of time and everything else, like it'd be a blast to start creating that. I mean, that's why I do the music thing. I mean, for me, the rap thing has been my thing. So that's easy for me to go into the studio and put together a song. You know what I mean? And that's why you see so many people that are artists that are doing these, like, you know, derivatives and different things, because it does create. And this is why in a lot of ways, NFT to me is cooler than crypto, because it's so much more, you know, creative and involved. And it is this intersection of tech and social and gaming and community and finance and everything, and all in one, and around some really cool shit, you know? So I think it's so yeah. So, well, let's switch gears a little bit, because we got about 25 more minutes before we're out of time. And and James and Jack, you guys, what do you think about this, the Christie's and Sotheby's auction? So what do you guys, so we just got some, and I call you guys out specifically because you're not on the show all the time with us. And, you know, so we just found out that Sotheby's has 2 lots, right? So it's a lot of dogs and a lot of apes. I mean, you think the approach makes sense? What do you think? What do you think is going to happen?
Whose are they?
They're like a DAO collective that owns them all.
Okay.
I personally don't love it. I think it's just too many. I mean, they could sell for an amazing price, and you know they probably will. There's no reserve on the auction. If it doesn't sell well, like if someone doesn't pony up the money, like Justin Sun, it could have an effect on the entire market, which is a concern. If it does well, then obviously it'll boost the entire market. But I just think it's too many in one go. Like I would rather have seen them just list like the 3 golds or the golds and the trippies, or you know, like hand select like the best of the 101 and have like 10 amazing ones. You know, not the whole lot in one go.
Yeah, so I kind of agree. The thing is, they're obviously trying to use the Beeple approach, right? Where it was all of those the 5,001. The problem is that you're immediately eliminating a huge chunk of people who would potentially want to bid on them. But the flip side of that is you're also inviting institutional investors that normally wouldn't be interested in bidding on 1 or 2 apes, right? So it could go either way, in my opinion. Ultimately, somebody compared it to the Punks auction that didn't really do that well, but Punks still recovered handsomely afterwards. So ultimately, I think we'll be fine. I do agree with James, there's just too many in one. But like Justin Sun or like other institutional investors can come in and like just get massive exposure, and that could just completely like make this go on to the next level. So either way, I think we'll be fine. But I think generally speaking, it's going to be good. But the one caveat to that is the gold apes in there, right? So James
there's
and I.
There's 2, right? 2 gold apes in there.
I think there's
3. 3 gold apes in there. Dude, I don't know. That's risky.
That's the thing. So we think that it's going to be a net negative for the golds, right? Because you're just kind of like putting him in a bunch with the rest when the golds should be, you know, like the.
Here's the thing. As a guy that runs commercials, here's what I can tell you 100% what's going to happen. No matter what the price is, the common person's going to think that was 1. They're not going to know there was 101 pieces. You're going to see a thing that says on CNN, Bored Ape sells for $27 million.
Right.
And that's what they're going to think, that one ape sold for 27 million. I guarantee it. It happens all the time. Nobody looks into the details. Now, us among us will think, if you divide that by one, it's so-and-so, so the value is less. The common person's just going to hear the words, and they're going to think that one dog sold for 20 million. I promise you, mark this post. That's what's going to happen.
That's a fair observation. But what's interesting is what James said is exactly what I said in our text thread this morning. Is exactly what I said in our text thread this morning. Is that if the auction goes badly, it could have a bad effect on the market afterwards. On the flip side, I don't, there are a lot of whales in the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I don't think they're going to let it go badly.
Well, yeah, but you're talking
if they see that it's going badly, I feel like I actually think there's enough firepower to make it better.
Well, there is.
Guys, come on, you know, there's no top, right?
No, and I'm
I didn't realize it was 101 apes in one lot. It's going to be a big number.
I didn't realize it was no reserve. I'm at least going to throw in something.
Yeah,
JT wins 101 apes for 100 each.
Yeah, exactly. Not even for $100. And because I think you can bid in either USD or ETH. And then, so how long after? When's the Christie's auction? Because this is the Sotheby. So for those of you at home, you've got the Sotheby's auction happening first, which is happening in next week, or it's like coming right up, right?
It starts September 2nd and 9th. I don't know when the apes are being sold. Does anybody know that?
But either way, within the next week, is when, and it's possible that it'll start. They all start at the same time and they all close, kind of. You know what I mean? So you've got a week of bidding. I don't think is it necessarily in the room the whole time, like. I'm not sure.
The Sotheby's one closes in 8 days and 21 hours.
Okay. So go ahead, James.
I'm bullish on the Christie's one because that is where we will see the true value per ape.
Yeah.
This is where you're going to get the maximum bid on each individual ape. And that one I'm more bullish on.
And when is that?
That is at the end of September, I believe.
All right. So we've got the Sotheby's auction next week, where basically you've got a lot of 101 apes, a lot of 101 dogs. There's also some mutants and stuff involved, no? Or is it that they haven't been mutant yet? Is that?
No, they're all virgin apes.
Oh, and then serums? Are serums involved?
I believe so.
I think like one M1 and one M2 or something, or like 3 M1s and 3 M2s just to do the gold apes, I think.
Okay. So they otherwise sold all the rest of the serums off already?
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
Nice. All right. So then that's going to happen. And then a few weeks later, then the Christie's auction is going to involve multiple, like a lot of suited apes, I believe. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what's up. So my first job out of college was actually working for Christie's auction house. So shout out to Christie's. Yeah.
But can you imagine if they did like 101 Monets for sale? That's the problem, is you're devaluing it just by grouping it together. It doesn't even matter what the results are. You just by putting them in 100, you're saying I can't get enough by breaking them up. I got to put them all together.
I agree. When I saw that it was 101, I thought, wow, that's a lot. And then when I saw it was all in one lot, I was like, man, because then, what's going to happen is if it undersells, then there's going to be a flooding in the market of undersold apes, right? They're going to say, all right, we're going to try and get our money, they'll then parse the list, right? They'll figure, okay, let's liquidate a certain amount of these. So we could see, now the good news is it's 1% of the supply, right? Which is meaningful, but it's not devastating, right? But it would lead to some pretty immediate price discovery, right? If all of a sudden, there's 40, 35 ETH apes in the mix, crushing the floor, and they sit for a while, then all of a sudden it's like, all right, the overall market now is like being, completely drops. Now, on the flip side, if they get bought at a per ape price that's more than the floor, or based on the value of the actual apes in the bucket, and they have to diamond hands these apes, right? And their plan is just to sit and hold them. Well, now you've pulled 101 apes basically out of the supply that aren't going to get touched for a little while. So, I think that could be interesting. So yeah, a lot of us are just gonna be sitting back waiting to see what happens. Same thing with the dogs. And, but I do think that there's enough people in the space paying attention, and the institutional investors are interesting. Just to promote a Sherpa episode we just recently did with Pedro Noronha, who is manages a hedge fund. in Europe, we talked about domains and what makes domains, how do we make domains more attractive to institutional investors? And so for all you domains folks who've sat through this entire NFT show, first of all, thank you, props to you, but also, go check that show out if you haven't seen it yet, because, Pedro does like a Q&A with us to kind of talk through from an institutional investor perspective, what are the important things that the domain industry needs to do in order to make domains more attractive as an investment to institutions. So, and I think that this, to Jack's point, I do think that because the price tag will be so high, and it does kind of sort of create it in a way that it's like, hey, these guys could come in and buy this whole, to me, it's just more in line with what they typically do with some of these kinds of assets, buying like mortgages and things are bundled together and shit like that, that it's like, this is, kind of up their alley. And I think that I would assume, look, the Sotheby's people aren't stupid, and the folks that are, and the Sotheby's folks too are like in the space. They got, the one dude who manages this piece of it. He's got an ape, he knows what's up. So, you would think that there had to be some real strategy and some, some people who really know what they're doing in the room deciding to do it this way, And
so, honestly, now that I think about it, like you mentioned, Sotheby's is huge, right? So ultimately, if nothing else, you're just getting more eyeballs on apes, right? And assuming that an institution does buy it and they diamond hands it, all of a sudden apes can be very appealing as an asset class, as an investment for people who never considered it otherwise. So ultimately, I do think that it's going to be a net positive for apes.
I think I saw something today. I saw something today that said JP Morgan just introduced NFT management. Did anyone else see that?
I wouldn't let them manage my NFTs.
No, I hear you, but it was them or somebody else. Like it was a brokerage house or an investment firm or a bank. I saw something, and unfortunately, information comes so quickly sometimes, and I didn't have time to really dig in. But I think this goes to your point, right? It's this introduction. We're talking about the introduction of domains as an asset class, and we're introducing some things from a domain standpoint. We got this deal with Rally Road where we're going to be really, we'll be listing domains as publicly available, fractionalized assets to, via the Rally Road platform shortly, which is going to allow people to, buy shares in a domain name, right? And if NFTs, they're already certain fractionalized, and I'm doing some of this as a little promo, right? I'm just letting everybody know, but there'll be more to follow about that. But the, more to the point that you've got some tools and platforms now that are already fractionalizing NFTs. And, this is the other side of that, right? But it's sort of just the continued evolution of the space. Also NFTs, they've been, around for a little bit and crazy this whole year, but we're still so early in the space in general that, I think that's the other thing that we forget. Like some of these things are just the initial steps in what is going to be, a longer journey that's going to lead to wherever we end up a few years from now, which is
so
obviously
from the JP Morgan website, JPG Morgan, is that it? Who's that?
JP. It's a play on words. J for JPEG Morgan.
Don't buy anything. You get the
No,
wrong.
don't do it. Don't do it.
JPG.
Oh, that's.
I wonder if that's. Yeah. So that's what you saw. I don't think that's actually JP Morgan.
Oh, okay. Well, that's actually super cool. They're gonna get sued.
JPG Morgan and Co. at
JP Gordon.
So if you go to JPG Morgan, it says at JPG Morgan, we have one key goal to help our clients build stronger portfolios of non-fungible tokens. And for more than 1 month, we've been doing just that for institutions, intermediaries, and individuals alike.
I'm gonna file a UDRP on these motherfuckers, man. You know what I'm saying?
Sounds legit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to. That's why I wanted to be careful to throw it out there, because it's powered by JPGMorgan.eth. that site will be up for a little while.
All I can see is Josh was signing a contract with JP Morgan to handle his NFTs. Like, oh, I sold that one. I already sold that one. They're like, what do we want you to? What are we going to handle for you? I already sold everything. Don't worry.
Yeah, I sold everything. Sorry. But wait, you said at the beginning of this call that you had all these NFTs. I know, I did at the beginning of the call. And anyway,
now I've got all this ether, and you see it pumping. You're welcome.
Well, another thing though is that, I've got friends of mine who do wealth management and typical like 401ks and stocks and all that stuff. And I've got more people that have been hitting me up, including some really good friends who that's their, they're, about how to do the NFT thing, so you're going to see that shift anyway, regardless. So that was a little premature, which is why I didn't want to pump that up. Cause again, I just saw a quick tweet, so I didn't want to hang my hat on it.
Let me jump in here for a sec. I actually did see an article, a friend of mine sent it to me. There's this bank, I believe, in Switzerland called Signum. They're fractionalizing an actual Picasso painting. So they actually bought it for like 2.5 million, I believe, and they put a value of like 3.2 million.
Yep.
And they're allowing people to invest like $6,000 each, and like it's provable on the blockchain, right? So NFTs are not just what we're seeing now. Like there's so many instances where you can use them. And also another one that I heard of was, I don't know if it was Mark Cuban or another one, where stadiums with NFT their tickets, right? Because a lot of people buy them and resell. This way, the stadium can benefit from the resale also. So many applications that we just don't even.
I think royalties is the biggest sleeper of all of this. It's like how easy you can implement royalties into future sales is game changer. That's the biggest game changer.
So there's two sides of that. I think royalties is the biggest game changer for artists and everything else. But I think access is the biggest one for consumers. Like, having this token, Supreme came out with a token and only sold 2,000 of them, but you had first rates to all their merch, or, and then you could sell that token. And same with Tesla, you could skip the lineup if you bought a higher number token or something. I think access is what we haven't even seen a fraction of yet.
Well, and then we got the Atom Bomb Squad stuff that just came out.
Yeah,
so,
right.
So we pivot into a few other projects real quick, and then, we got about 10, 15 minutes, but the, the Atom Bomb Squad, which, the hundreds, like that is, going to be, they did 25,000, which seemed like a lot, but they sold out quickly. And I'm already getting pretty good offers on the ones. I know Josh already sold. He's gone. He's out.
Oh, you never, Josh.
No. I sold. I bought a bunch for 0.25. I sold at 0.5, recouped my investment, and I've still got some.
Right.
It's how the game is played, guys.
Don't hate the player, hate the game. But those, but that will be if you read through some of the stuff that they're doing with that, it is going to be about access to drops and like, merch and things and whatnot. And and even the merch drops that they're doing from the Bored Ape Yacht Club have been extremely successful. I mean,
shit. I never.
So it's like, there's no doubt that, the use of NFTs is going to be, and this is the evolution that we're talking about. I mean, we're in like, this is level one of where it could ultimately end up. And, it does create a whole lot of like new stuff. And, the music industry, I use this example all the time. I mean, you can, buy into an artist. You can literally, not only are you supporting an artist by buying their music early, but you could end up like being able to resell that music and those tokens later on. So it's like, we all like to discover artists back in the day when we were younger. It was like, being on to stuff like you love being like, oh, have you heard this yet? Have you heard that yet? You can actually get in first, pay in a way to support the artist directly, and then make more money as they get more popular and successful because, either through some kind of a royalty share or just simply flipping the NFT that is the collector's item, right? So now instead of hanging the gold record on the wall or buying that at an auction or something, it's like, you're actually buying into the music itself. And, I think that we're
the artists and the music side of NFTs is not even started yet.
No,
it's not even like people aren't even thinking about it, but the music side of NFT is like, that could be huge. And I'm sure the record companies are probably not loving the possibilities.
No, well, they are and they aren't, right? I mean, it depends on how progressive they're thinking, right? And I think it's ultimately going to depend on, everybody's mileage will vary. So I think some folks are going to do well because, they're going to figure out how to best, kind of work it and monetize it. I mean, people still will pay for music. People pay for, Apple Music subscriptions, and they found out that people would pay for $1 a song, even though, Napster and other LimeWire and other things were available, right? But people will also pay for access, going back, I think, to the point that we were making about that. You have certain, live shows and, concert tickets and backstage pass access and behind the scenes and video and all this kind of stuff. It's like, so the artists that are very digitally savvy or have good people around them to help them, kind of get hip and figure that out will do very well. And the labels that then also solve that will also do very well. So, it's just continuing to figure out how to, kind of keep up with everything that's happening and how to best monetize it. I mean,
well, like just imagine if like, so Fish, I really don't even know what these guys really do. They speak the music, but apparently Fish has like this incredible cult, right? So a couple of my friends have, I guess there's a show in next February or something. I don't know, it's in Mexico, right? But all they did was line up, get on their phone and try to get tickets for this. And one guy spent like $30,000 on like three nights there in some suite and stuff like that. But they've gone to like 50, 60, 70 shows. I mean, like these are hardcore fans.
Yeah.
So now imagine if like Fish or somebody came out with an NFT where you didn't have to line up. You had like 24 hours to get you. Like it's incredible.
And so, one of the Pixel Vault folks, I think, are really like when you look at who's awesome. Doing, and so that's Punk's Comic and James, you guys have any Punk's Comic, Founders DAO, Mint Passes, any of that kind of stuff?
You and Alan might need to talk about this in a different conversation. It just hurt. It just pained. Like I had to stop following Beanie. Like it just pains me every time I see this free. Like, oh, we're going to give you another 10 Ethereum, and if you've got all of these, we're going to give you 100 Ethereum.
Yeah.
Well, look, Alan's in a lot more than me, man. I have one copy of the comic. I have one Mint Pass. I need to get a Founders DAO token, and now I guess I have to get a second Mint Pass.
You need to get a second Mint Pass as well. Like he's absolutely milking you guys.
He is. He's just
but he's paying off. It's so great. It's
awesome. Then the founder said, "Hey, he's just the marketing arm of ours. He has nothing to do with any of this."
Well, that's because he's on Twitter telling Pranksy to go fuck himself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he blocked me. He blocked me because I told him Pranksy got what 5 punks for 3 top shots of what's his name, Zion. Is that
it was a zombie? It's a zombie punk too, right?
It was a zombie
and 4
punk.
other ones.
Yeah. Dude, Pranksy got scammed out of 100 ETH today. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that.
We're trying to buy a Banksy.
100.
Basically,
I didn't know he actually sent the ETH. I thought it was just a bid.
It was a bid that got accepted, and then they ran for the hills.
Yeah, and then I saw like somebody tweeted like Pranksy Banksy prank. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I did see that. I didn't know what that meant. Oh, I feel better about my $1,000 then.
Oh yeah, and my troll money, man. Rough. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but the thing about Pixel Vault, so you can find it on OpenSea under Punk's Comic, and but here's the thing: for the people who minted the Punk's Comics, who believed in the beginning, they're getting all this benefit basically for free. I mean, if you had a couple, all you needed to do, right, is get a fucking time machine. But back then, what you needed to do was, buy like a couple copies, mint a few copies of the comic. And if you burned one to get into the DAO, and you didn't even need to burn one to get the Mint Pass, right, Alan? You just got the Mint Pass for having a comic?
No, so you
had to mint the Mint Pass.
Yeah, you had a comic, and then you had to burn the comic to get a Mint Pass. But there's no cost. There's no cost to it. It's just a burn fee, I think.
Just gotta get rid of it.
Yeah, so something like that. I can't remember. Honestly, for what you put into it was ridiculous. It's like
it was basically the best
you
investment
about $500 and now it's worth, I don't know, 50,000, 100,000.
Yeah, and that's what I think. Yeah. But it's all being driven by the fact that the creators who are able to build and understand the new, how to work this system, right? And how to provide additional value. That's what the Bored Ape Yacht Club has done incredibly between the dogs and some of the merch drops. And now with everything that's going on with the mutants, might not be perfect, and it might not be perfect for everybody, but overall creating tons of value for people who've gotten involved and taken the leap of faith and become part of the community and all that.
And Beanie's put his mouth where,
his money where his mouth is.
Oh
yeah. Look, like I said, I got to put his money
where his mouth is. Cause I mean, like, I don't know of anybody else in this industry that's, on that scale anyhow, who's gone out and really hired talent from like Marvel and all this stuff. Like he's put his money into this, and
go ahead. He's a smart guy. He's a smart guy. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt.
He's just polarizing.
Yeah, of course. And I think, there's probably some method to that madness, you know what I mean? And, but keep in mind, these people that are become celebrities in the space, I mean, literally just got in 6 months before we did, you know what I mean? Like, or, and it's elevated them really high because they've had this crazy success.
Apart from James.
What's that? Yeah, well, I mean, James and Jack and their whole, the two families, they operate at a different level than the rest of us, you know what I mean? Except for maybe Drew, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like, and I just, and I carry Drew's bag, so I get some credit, but
I just like watching Food's travel videos. I mean, the diving experience is amazing.
I'm in the food. We watch his food pictures. I'm like, what? We just try and guess what it is. That's like, what is he eating?
James, you provide more entertainment than you realize to everybody else.
I'm glad.
So anyway, all right, well, guys, look, we are almost out of time. I think we've covered a lot of ground, and this is not going to be the only time that we get everybody on here. We're going to keep it moving, as we've been doing these rabbit hole shows, and this is everybody that's part of this crew is collectively the Rabbit Hole Gang. We're going to do, by the way, I got rabbitholegang.com. So to tie it all back, all roads lead to domains, rabbitholegang.com. It goes to the most recent Sherpa rabbit hole episode until we decide to drop like a rabbit hole NFT. But so,
can we call this show? Let's call this show the Gang Bang. No, don't do it.
Let's see. Let's see how many of these we can do before it all comes crashing down.
It's call it the countdown. No, hey, look, man. I mean,
the countdown.
I think at the end of the day, I think whether you are bullish in the moment or bearish in the moment, I mean, the idea that NFTs are here to stay, right? So I think
I think we're all bullish. I think
I think you have to be bullish to a certain extent to even be in the room, right? But NFTs are here to stay. There's no question. I think now it's just a question of there's going to be winners. There's going to be a lot of losers, right? I think and I think I think we all agree. Look, the blue chips will remain. Now, whether or not they remain at a certain price level and how all that shit, but there's so much to happen in between, and there's so much money to either be made or lost. That's why it's always do your own research, all that kind of stuff. But overall, I think we are still crazy early in the space. Everybody, it's just like, you saw with crypto, back in 17, 18, the run up, all of a sudden, everybody, the guy at the supermarket saying, oh, you heard of cryptocurrency, you know what I mean? And then, now the most recent run up, it's, higher than it's ever been. Right.
Have you guys seen the news?
What's that?
The UTA signs the Larva Labs, CryptoPunks, Meebits, and Autoglyphs for film, TV, video game, and publishing products.
Dude.
This is United Talent Agency, probably one of the biggest.
Well, here's the thing, though. The CryptoPunks get nothing out of it. That's the difference, is they can do that because they own the rights. You can't do that with Bored Ape because they don't represent us. We have our own representation.
Yeah.
So
we're
getting screwed.
And that's what I do love. And that's what I do love about the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I mean, the derivative rights, that was one of the genius things that they did, was that they basically said, you have all the derivative rights, you can do what you want with your apes, with the certain limitations, but, and that's what's open the floodgates for people to be like, well, hell yeah, I'm going to spend this money and buy this thing because I can do so much with it, but this is exactly what I'm saying about the space, in that we are so early, right? And even so, they just do this deal with UTA. You're going to start seeing CryptoPunks and Meebits and everything else under their umbrella being used for even more stuff. And as that happens, the value of CryptoPunks
don't get paid a dime.
Yeah, but the value.
I mean, there is a very clear difference. There is a very clear difference between, you can see it between Lava Labs and some of the other newer projects where the founders are clearly trying to drive value for their community, as opposed to Lava Labs that are clearly trying to drive value for themselves. It's very, very obvious from my perspective.
Yeah. Well,
it is, but that's the great thing about what we're doing. I think it's not just about NFTs. There's so many different categories of collectibles. There's and some will have IP rights, some doesn't. But what this escalation has done over the last 3 months or 5 months, it's not just price discovery. It's really shown how many people and how many different groups are out there. Yeah. And I don't know where that stops, but we haven't touched this. We've only touch the surface of this stuff, I think.
Alan,
I mean, what
shuts
does
it
something
off.
like this do?
I do. I want to know.
when you talk about UTA like and the Lava Lab thing, indirectly it still benefits the community because it
That's
brings
what I was
validation.
saying. Yeah.
It brings validation, right?
And it raises the visibility, and it's absolutely going to make the actual underlying NFTs more valuable. And then when the Bored Apes do their deal with Netflix to drop a Netflix show, and and they coordinate and get people to get their apes involved, and I mean, at the end of the
my kids are going to be watching my Bored Apes on Netflix.
Yeah, but how frustrating would it be for your
switching from Peppa Pig
to be on every commercial and a TV show and the star of a TV show and you make zero?
Well, that's
That's a huge question. That's a big question.
Well, and that's where it remains to be seen. And there's still, questions to be answered. But I think again, it's just this
punks and meebits are like .com. You don't really own them. You just rent them.
Well, but I'll say, again, going back to my point though, still super bullish. NFTs are not going anywhere. The OG blue chip stuff is going to continue to elevate overall in value, even if we see, like the S&P index, maybe it'll have its dips, but overall it's going to continue to rise as there's more and more people that are going to come into the space. And as long as the bigger macro factors remain somewhat constant, there's so much money out there and the stock market's up and everything else. So, if you get Drew on here, he'll tell you how, well, once the stock market crashes and crypto crashes and the dollar crashes and, and we're all having to live on, James's yacht because there's no more there's no more sovereignty anywhere. But Drew's actually on a yacht right now off the coast of Greece, which is why he's not here. But
catamaran, not a yacht.
That's kind of dirty, man.
Can we please add that cranberry music to that video and make it a meme?
I was trying to add music to it.
The one where he's reaching for the bar and he almost falls into the. Did you see that too?
Drew sent a little video on our rabbit hole gang. We're gonna have to grow the thread, by the way, to include everybody that's part of the rabbit hole gang. And so Drew sent us a video on the boat, like with the wind and everything. And you didn't have any hair he didn't have Jack's hair to be like doing its thing, but he was, would have really been cool with the cranberry juice, like the Fleetwood Mac, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's the Fleetwood Mac.
I will make that happen. I tried to do it on my iPhone, but I got hit with because my music's all through Apple Music and the rights. It was a digital rights management block that wouldn't let me put it on the video on my phone. So, which kind of ties into all this other shit that we're talking about. Anyway,
I can have my son do it. He knows how to rip all this shit.
Well, you might have to have him do it. And we'll release it as an NFT. But anyway, guys, look, I appreciate all y'all taking the time. We are over time. I think the last piece I will say, which is the point I've been making, and I think this news coming in is just more sort of fuel to that or validation of that point, which is we are way early on NFTs. The winners and losers will still be yet to decided, but we can definitely see certain trends and things emerging, and we've been able to take advantage of that and have a ton of fun in the process. In the meantime, we're just talking our stuff and pumping our bags and doing what we do. So I want to thank all y'all for being on the show, especially James and Jack. This is the first time, but not the last time. And Shane, Josh, Alan, as always, thank you. And like I say in every show, thank you to the audience, because without you, there's no us. And we will catch you all next time here on Down the Rabbit Hole on DomainSherpa, where all roads lead to domains. Peace out.
Bye, guys.
It don't matter what you do.